What is up, blind viewers? How's everybody doing today? All right, I have someone special for us today to hang out with, chit chat. Okay, she is a daycare person by the week. By the weekend, she's an RVer. She may be the queen of her castle, but she's my Princess Pippa. It's Worm's Eye View. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. How's things over there?
Not too bad, not too bad. So speaking of how are things over there in the UK as far as all this madness? Are you, I guess you guys are back on lockdown again?
Yeah, so we were not going to go into lockdown. We were definitely not going to go into lockdown. That was not going to happen. Absolutely wasn't going to happen. We were going to stick with our local tier system setup. Wales went into lockdown and then we went into lockdown. It was inevitable. It was going to happen. The numbers were just going up too much. Yeah. So we are currently, Wales is coming out of their lockdown in the next few days. They had a 2-week circuit breaker, fire break type thing.
Okay.
And we are now having a month of lockdown. But it's not like lockdown back in March. So there are more shops open than there were before. The kids are still at school. The unis are still on. So it doesn't feel like a real lockdown. It's a bit weird, this one.
Okay. Well, enough of the gloom and doom. Let's talk about YouTube. First of all, let's start with Worm's Eye View. Where did that come from?
Okay. So before YouTube, I had a written blog for many years. I think probably Brendan was about 8 at the time and Kenzie was probably 4. And it's still there. It's now its own website, which it wasn't before. So if you go to wormseyeview1.co.uk, that is the website. And there are years and years of blogs on there. And the reason I came up with Worm's Eye View is because the kids were so young and because the whole thing was based on childcare.
Right.
My view was we see everything from like a bird's eye view from the parents. But if you start seeing things from lower down, from like a worm's eye view, I'm not saying kids are worms, but you start to see things from a totally different perspective and you start seeing the magic in life again. Because as a grown up, you can walk past a puddle and totally go, oh, it's a puddle, I'm going to get wet feet. Whereas when you're a kid, you see a puddle in a totally different way and you see the things floating in it. And it's just, the idea of Worm's Eye View was just being that bit closer to the ground and seeing the magic and stuff.
Well,
so that's where that came from.
Pretty clever.
I have my clever moments occasionally.
You do.
And then I thought everything's going on to filming and not on written blogs as much. And so I really needed to get a hang on YouTube. So my real early YouTube stuff is all childcare based. It's all videos for promoting play and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then one day I just thought, well, I did a video and then I sort of did another video the next day. And then I was like, I wonder how long I can keep doing these videos for. And we're kind of 2 years down the line and I'm still doing them every day.
Well, I want to go back to the Worm's Eye View thing, which is kind of interesting because of my visual impairment and losing my sight. I kind of look at things, probably maybe not at the Worm's Eye View, but I do look at things, that certain people, that sighted people, I say, take for granted. So just little things. You
notice the fine detail and the beauty.
Yeah.
A lot of us are in a rush and just miss it all.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah. Oh, it's early. It's kind of misty and foggy out. I'm getting in my car and driving where I go, hey, look at that spider web between those two, breaking the dew off the thing, and where they just, yeah. So yeah, that's interesting.
I bet that's part of your art mind as well, because you're creative and arty and you see the details so that you can paint the details.
Yeah, probably. I'd like to think so. Yeah, that I pay attention to those finer things and try to get it in there. And so we got, let's see, Worm's Eye View. You started making videos and you wanted to see how long it went and you just got hooked on it, huh?
It's just gone on and on. I don't know when to stop.
Whether people like it or not, you're just going.
Yep. Viewers or no viewers, I'll just keep going.
That's right. Well, I do want to say, and I'm not the only one that has expressed this. I've heard it from other folks as well. When I bring it up, is that I don't know if it's maybe it's a UK thing or not, but a lot of folks that have daycare, it's like, okay, the kids are here, okay, plunk down here, have some toys, turn on TV, and then go about your day and check on them, make sure they're fed and stuff like that. But you actually pay attention to them, play with them, take them outside, show them things, take them places and let them run around and experience things. And I know a lot of people say that if I could and I had kids that needed daycare, they would definitely go to Pippa. So hats off to you, girl.
Thank you. I have a lot of parents actually at pickup that say, when am I going to do adult daycare? And I say, tell you what, leave the kids with someone else. And one day I'm just going to run adult daycare for the day. I'm going to put them down for a nap. I'm going to, just everything's going to be like it is for the kids, but just for the adults. Yeah. We're going to do painting. We're going to go out for walks and look at spiders' webs.
There you go. Okay. I hope this clears up because I'm catching a flight and I'm going to come over for adult daycare today.
Okay. You might want to hire a private jet or something because there's several Americans that have said they want to come too. So if you all club together and hire a jet, it'll probably be cheaper.
Oh, we can chip in. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And there's no ratios. You're all over 8. So, I can have as many as you as I can fit.
There you go. All right. So you decided you're going to save up. You're going to save up your pennies. You got your little jar out and you wanted to go camping and you wanted to buy yourself a van, caravan, whatever you guys call it over there. And you wanted to get an RV and you wanted to go. So where did that all come from? When did you start getting that into your pretty little head?
Okay. So originally, before I had to think about things like money, bills, when I was probably 8, I'm going to buy a bus, a double-decker bus that we have in the UK. I don't know if you guys have double-deckers.
No.
I have a double-decker bus. And I'm going to kit it out and it's going to be my house. And I'm just going to drive around and stop where I want. And I'm going to live in my bus. And I hadn't thought about things like food, water, money to run the bus, any of that. That's what I was going to do. And then kind of grown-up life happened and go get a job and kids and, all the reality came and I just did the usual thing like, have a family, get a house and everything else and totally forgot about all of that and actually became quite, nervous of going anywhere. I became quite anxious. Anxiety hit big time.
Right.
And if somebody said to me, like a friend said to me one day, this is amazing childcare place. It's a really well-known one. It's about 3 hours up north. I'm going to go and do my degree. Come with me tomorrow morning and we'll go and spend the day there. There's a buffet, everything else. All you got to do is sit through the talk for my degree thing, but you get to have a tour about the whole place. It's like really inspirational. You'll love it. And I was like, yeah, but no, I can't do that. And it's because what about the journey? What if I need the toilet? What about food? What time have I got to leave? You haven't given me time to think about it. I can't just do that the next day. Like,
wow.
Literally, I couldn't do it. There's no way. And things like going into London, no, couldn't do that. Couldn't get on a train and go into London. No, that's too big, too scary. And like being a mum just took over. And obviously both my boys are on the autistic spectrum. And although you wouldn't necessarily know it now, it was hard when they were growing up. Oh. So I just became mum. And then as they started to be a bit more self-sufficient and I started doing YouTube, I have no idea how I came across van videos. I have no idea how that happened. But several people that watched me had van channels.
Uh-huh.
And there's a channel called Campervan Tales, which is Daryl and Keith, and they've got their dogs. Mm-hmm. And they started commenting regularly. And they invited me to an off-grid camp for a weekend. This would have been last year, probably. Yeah, probably last year. And I went in my little Zafira with my little pop-up tent, and it was hell. The whole event was fantastic, but sleeping in there in -4 was hell.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, there is no way I can go camping in this. So then I decided that I needed a van. And so here we have like stealth vanning, we call it, which is just like a normal builder's van.
Yeah.
On the outside, but done up on the inside as a camper. So you can move around and people don't necessarily know it's an RV. It's just the stealth van, we call it. So yeah, I started working my butt off, and then this van came up and I hadn't quite saved up enough money, and Lee lent me the rest of the money to go and get it. And then I had a whole heap of problems because that's van life. So loads of things were going wrong with it. You can probably explain why it was so cheap.
Yeah, right.
And then we had lockdown. So I'd only managed to have like 2 trips away in it, I think. And then we had lockdown. But I have had some good trips since. Some overnighters and some weekends. And I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
That's awesome. We have the stealth campers also here that don't fix their vans up on the outside too much, and then so they can park along the streets or whatever. That is pretty cool though. So wow. Not quite the double-decker bus, but I guess it'll do, right?
Yeah, and the boys have got no interest in going, and Lee's really not into it.
Yeah.
So it's just got to be big enough for me, which it is. Spog is a good van. I do love Spog, and it's slowly been customized how I want it. I've now got heating in there, so we've got a diesel heater. That does give you away. That's not very stealthy because it's quite noisy.
It's kind of funny how you went from no travel, no, I'm not going to do to I'm going to go.
Yeah. And I do it on my own. See, I know my mum freaks out and she's like, I don't want to know. But I will literally I'll go one Friday and I'll come back at some point on Saturday. But on that Friday night, I'll be parked up in some wood somewhere or by the sea. Like last trip I did, I parked up by the sea. And then I went for a run in the morning, and at about 11:30, I came back. The tide had come in and I had to take my shoes off and roll my trousers up and wade back to the van because we were underwater.
Yes, you were not parked by the sea. You were parked in the sea.
The sea came to us. But it was great because I literally sat in my van paddling. I sat on the edge of the van paddling my feet. And I was like, this is the life. And I'm seeing so much as well. Like, I haven't got a passport. So I haven't traveled since I was probably 21, maybe, I think was the last time I traveled outside the UK. But there's so much to see here that I have just not seen.
I always say that when I watch the RVers here, which is cool. I mean, it's nice to see them running around to different places, but it's like they always say, well, if I came there, what would I say? And I was like, there's so much. And then you kind of think like, and I don't really have to drive 1,000 miles. I can put 1,000 miles on just driving in my own backyard and see all kinds of things. So you really don't have to go far if you really want to go see and play and do and have fun.
And the thing about vlogging it all, including the stuff locally to me. So the stuff locally and we go back to that, I suppose, that worm's eye view thing of not seeing things and then seeing it afresh. Vlogging means I'm seeing everything afresh. So things like Oxford, I think you commented that you liked my Oxford video and the architecture and everything else, the fine details, the gargoyles and stuff like that. I have been in and out of Oxford all my life and never really appreciated it. It's not somewhere I choose to go because it gets too busy. But actually, if you come out of the centre of Oxford and you start going down the colleges and the unis and the old streets, it's stunning. And I didn't appreciate it until I started putting a camera up and going, what would people like to see? And I'm like, I've never seen that before. And I've never seen that before.
Wow.
And you really start to appreciate what's on your doorstep with fresh eyes.
Now that is a whole different, that just spun everything around for me, because I always see these folks, for instance, the ones here, when they all get together in the desert somewhere and there's, 10 of them and they're all in a big circle and they all have their cameras pointing at each other, pointing at each other, making their little videos. And I'm always at that. I have that in my mind where it's like, you're really not experiencing it. You're not enjoying it. You're not interacting with folks. You're worried about a camera and getting a shot, you know? And here you are saying that it's a different thing because you're actually looking and noticing things that you don't pay attention to normally.
If you're with other people, so sometimes if I'm filming something and say I was out with my family at a National Trust place, I'm more conscious of the fact that I'm holding the camera and filming things, because when my family then take photos, I always seem to have a camera in my hand. And I'm looking down checking that I've turned it off or something, and I'm like, am I really in the moment with that? So I'm aware of that when I'm with other people. But when most of my traveling, I do just me.
Right.
And I would probably just walk around kind of, I want to go here, so I'm just going to walk here. And I'm not really paying attention. But because I'm thinking, what do people want to see? I'm looking at things going, well, that looks interesting. I've never been down there before. I wonder what that building, and I start thinking about it in a different way. Like, what might you want to know? What might you see? So yeah. And if you're at a big YouTube meetup, I don't do them very often, but I've done a couple where you meet up with other YouTubers.
Yeah.
And especially like if I'm with Daryl and Keith from Campervan Tales, who I would normally go away with, say, for a weekend or something. We'd go and do some hikes and bits. They're YouTubing as well. And I mean, I take maybe, I don't know, say half an hour to an hour's footage. If I'm on a hike, it's probably more like an hour's footage out of the entire hike. So we could be out for 4 or 5 hours, and I've really only filmed in snippets an hour's worth of stuff. So I still had 3 hours where we've just chatted, and it's not all been behind the camera kind of thing. Yeah,
because that's the way I am I had Lola from Lost on Land was here. Sightseeing Sally was here. I went and met up with Chelsea Vicari, and all those little meetups and hangouts that I had, I might have 10 minutes of footage. Because I'm like, these people were here. I talked to them but I've never met them and hung out with them. I'm not jamming a camera in your face. I'm not worried about getting a shot. I'm worried about being here in the moment and talking to you and getting to know you. And it's like, you tell people, I hung out with, well, it's not on camera. Well, I was hanging out with someone. I was.
Yeah. I have to say, there have been times when I've met up with somebody and then literally got no footage. and I'm like, well, that was silly. But it's because we've literally sat talking or doing something, gone somewhere, and I haven't picked up any footage of it because I've been in the moment. That's when the weekends tend to be good. If I'm away for a weekend, that tends to be good because there's plenty of time. I'm not in like a 3-hour block where I've met somebody, so then it kind of, you naturally, when you're spending all your time in that weekend with that person, you start to kind of vlog around the chats and stuff. Yeah.
See, I just always say, well, I guess that proves that I'm a horrible YouTuber. I don't film everything.
Maybe we're just not very good at it.
That's why we got to do these things like this. So see, it's proof. We talked honest.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm better at this because this isn't planned thing that we can then chat and film rather than the other way, because I'll forget to film. So
your first little, we'll call it weekend excursion, was it nerve-wracking? Were you anxious? Was it like, oh, the kids, the family, I'm going? Or was it like or was it just, oh man, I'm going to be out here by myself? What was that going through your first time?
Excited. I was so excited.
Were you?
I literally packed up the van, and as I drove down the motorway, I could literally feel all the stress just wash away from me.
Wow.
It's like, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. And it was just I can do whatever I want. And I had no idea where I was going. I had a rough idea of some hills I'd like to go and stay at.
Right.
And I think I put something on Facebook that said, or Instagram that said that I'd hit the road and I was heading out this way. And then somebody that I'd met at Off Grid in the summer texted me. And so typical van thing, you need a wee, don't need the services, you just stop at the side of the road and get your toilet out. So I pulled over, did what I needed to do, and then checked my phone. And I've got this message, and he says, come and have a cup of tea if you're coming out my way. I've got the perfect overnight spot for you. I was up there last night. You'll love it. And then he sent me a photo of the view from the overnight stop, and I was like, oh, I need to go there. So totally changed my plans en route.
Wow.
Drove his address into my sat nav, went and had a cup of tea with him. He showed me gave me directions how to get there, told me where the good fish and chip shop was so I could pick up my dinner on the way. And it was an amazing first night out. I mean, I had a couple of what we call boy racers. So I don't know what you call them, but it's like the lads with their loud music that all meet together with their fast cars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They all rock up at the same place until about 11:30, 12, maybe a bit later, and then they all go home. So I had a few of those at the far side. But other than that, it was just so beautiful, so peaceful. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
That's awesome. I guess that really got the bug in you then, if your first time was that good, huh?
I've not had any bad park-ups yet. I'm waiting for one, but I've not had any dodgy ones yet.
Now, are there, I mean, you're not like a full-timer in it, but are there a lot of folks that do stuff like that in the UK? I know here we have millions, literally millions.
There's a lot more than I realized. And there's a lot more living in the vans than I realized. Yeah. So in my head, we have what we call travelers here, who are usually Irish, of Irish descent, right. And they have like caravans and trucks. And what they tend to do is they wait till the dead of night and then they pull up en masse on a village green or a car park or whatever, completely take over. And I mean, I'm being a bit stereotypical, and I could get in, trouble for being very stereotypical, but the experience tends to be they come in the dead of night. They're there in the morning when you wake up. Things tend to go missing from gardens and what have you. While they're around. And then we have we have a lot of mess, so they don't use toilets. They think that's dirty, so they go out. So we had them in the village and they went and used our forest school, and we had to shut everything, the ditches, the paths down the back. They just go to the toilet in those places.
Gotcha.
They leave their bags of rubbish around, and then the police come and tell them they need to move, and they know the law down to a fine art, how long it takes somebody to get an eviction notice, everything else. And then eventually they leave and leave their mess. And that was my only experience, apart from people with motorhomes and caravans who go to caravan parks and motorhome parks. That was my only experience of it. But there's a lot of stealth van people living in their vans, and they're small vans. They're like my vans, or maybe a high top.
Right.
And they just move from place to place, and you don't necessarily know they're there because I'm picking them out now because I'm aware of them, but they must have been there for years and I didn't know about them. So they are pretty stealthy.
So your meetups, I know I watch a few folks like Posh Cats and One Man and His Whippet and some other folks. So have you gotten together with other tubers that do the same thing, the little caravanners or RVers or whatever you guys call them?
So Posh Cats came to the village campsite that we have here, and they spent a weekend with us. Now they're different because they only do campsites. They are a member of the Caravan Club, which is like a lot of our sites are owned by the Caravan Club, or it's Caravan Club certified, I think is what it is. It's not necessarily owned by them, but if you're a member, you can go and stay on the site, and they have a certain standard.
Gotcha.
Because they have a motorhome, so
yeah,
they tend to stay only in campsite, motorhome sites. Then you've got like your campsites, which are a bit more free. Some people tent, some people have motorhomes, some people have vans. You can just pay, and it just has basic amenities.
Right.
Some have electric, some don't. And then so the people I've met up with, they've like I said, they did the campsites. They came, spent the weekend with us, and we did things around the campsite.
Right.
For meetups, I've met up with Campervan Tales, Billy, who has a channel. He does a lot of history stuff, and a group of his friends. We met up in like a farm. It was actually closed for the winter, but because Daryl and Keith knew them, they opened it up for us, and we had electric and toilets and showers and what have you. Yeah, it was freezing cold, and I didn't have my heating at the time. But it was really nice, and that was up in the Lake District, which I had never been as far north. I'd never been up to the lakes, and that is just stunning. I mean, like mountains, and it's just gorgeous. And like I said, I meet up with Daryl and Keith quite a lot. The others, so like, and I've met Kev, who is Wandering Womble, and he is quite often with the likes of One Man and His Whippet and what have you. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't met up with One Man and His Whippet and all of that. They've got quite a big group, and I don't know if I would be very comfortable in a big group.
Yeah.
Because I'd probably be fine and I'd get on fine with everybody, but I'm a small group person rather than a big group person.
Yeah.
And they now meet in huge mass events. Like, they don't tend to, well, I've not seen them meet up in small groups as much. I've seen them like go to big meetups.
Okay, so they do have the big meetups over there, like kind of like our RTR that's on over here and stuff like that. Is it that big or not quite that big, or?
No, they are big. So there's Camp Quirky, which I've never been to, and that has like lots of stalls, events and bits, talks going on, how to fit your diesel heater, people selling things, tech and all the rest of it to go with your van, and they get quite a big following. There's another one which was supposed to happen a few weeks back, but obviously got cancelled.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so there are a few. I've not gone to any of them, but there are a few of these big ones, and you have like I don't know, I'm trying to think, somewhere like a big rugby club or somewhere that's got several fields, and that's where they're based. Gotcha. So obviously we don't have the deserts and stuff like that, so they would hire a showground, or they would hire a rugby club or something like that. And so it's probably not as big as your big desert ones, because they're massive, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're really spread out.
Yeah, and it kind of like there's like a main event, and then people go and they get close to it, but they don't go to it, and they make their own little the RTR. So everybody goes, and if you kind of go to the outskirts of the RTR, and they start calling it the PARTR. So then there's the those folks, and it just looks like one big mass, but it's like three or four different things. They've not paid to get
in. Is that what it is? So like you pay to get in, or you can just be on the outskirts and kind of have your own spin-off.
And the RTR is run by Bob and Wells and all that, and he has rules, and everybody's like, oh, you don't want to deal with Bob's rules, but we want to hang out with everybody and meet everybody, and we know everyone's going to be here, so everybody just flocks to the same place, and they all just hang out, and it does get quite large.
We don't have the space for that here. Because it is kind of like you've got these fields, or you've got a showground. And if we tried to do something like that en masse, somewhere like the lakes or the peaks or somewhere like that, I mean, there wouldn't be enough space. There's not enough space. You'd be on little side roads and things, and everyone would be so spread out, and the police would rock up and tell you all to move on.
Yeah.
So I think we just don't have that big open space.
Well,
so it doesn't happen.
well, the full timers especially usually go there anyway because as it gets cold and the weather starts to turn crappy, everyone runs to the desert so they don't have to worry about, freezing and and everything else. They just chill.
See now, when in my last trip, the place that I went to now, it's actually getting harder, and I always pick things at the wrong time to get into. I usually get into things as it's coming to an end. Okay, this is my life. This is what I do, and I've come into this as a lot of places are getting harder and harder to wild park. So wild camping it's not illegal, but it's not legal. So you can't legally wild camp anywhere.
Right.
But people do wild camp and they do wild park up. A lot of our car parks in the woods and places like that are owned by either the National Trust or the Woodland Trust, or various people. It's managed by various people, or it's private estates, but there's public rights of way on it, so it could be managed by a manor or whoever. And they have these signs up, you can park here these hours, keep your dog on your lead or not, or, whatever the rules are. And quite often it says no overnight camping, no camping, no fires. And now it's done this other thing, no overnight sleeping.
Yeah.
And a motorhome with a cross through it. So some of them say you can park overnight and you can pay to park overnight, but it also says no overnight sleeping. And it's whether or not you get a ranger or somebody come round, because they can fine you, because they then said there is a fine of this if you break the rules.
Right.
A lot of times you don't get caught, but some people have been caught and fined. So I'm always meticulously checking where, if I'm in a car park, I always check what the sign says.
Yeah.
We have an app as well that we can use where lots of people put on like good wild park ups.
Oh yeah.
Then they get rated as well. So if it's suddenly people are putting height barriers, especially along the coast, it's almost impossible to get a spot by the coast to stay in the van, because all of the roads along the coast edge have either been made private, double yellow lines, signs saying no overnight sleeping or parking. It's like and I use Google Maps all the time and check all the signs on the street view of Google Maps, because I don't want to drive somewhere and then go, okay, I can't park here because I didn't see that sign.
That's smart.
So it's hard to find places. It's not easy to find a nice view. I mean, you could probably pull up in a cul-de-sac or in a road somewhere and sleep for the night, and nobody would know if you're in a stealth van or what have you.
Right.
But who wants to go and do that in a town? You want to be somewhere pretty. And
yeah, it's kind of getting that way here as well. I know a lot of them used to, go to the Cracker Barrels or the Walmarts. Just, it was just like I'm going from point A to point B, and on the way, I'm not going to go find pay for a campsite or whatever. I'll just stop at a Walmart, sleep for the night, and then go on. Well, now it's getting more and more where they're not allowing it and other things. And they always say, oh, well, it's the municipality. But I say it's the folks that are, the bad apples that spoil the whole bunch, the ones that are abusing it and doing kind of crappy stuff, and all the no, that doesn't happen. Well, then why is it getting harder and harder for you guys to find place to park? Obviously somebody's doing something.
Yeah. And there are people. So I think this is where I was going before, got sidetracked as I do. But the place that I went and stayed by the sea, where the sea came in to meet me, so that is well known, and apparently some of the locals aren't liking it and they're trying to get it stopped. But at the moment, you can go there. And there were several of us on the tidal road, hence why the tide came in, on the tidal road, who were risking the flood. And we were all quite quiet and we were fine. But the main road into that bit on both sides of the road was chocker with vans, motorhomes, huge, great big lorries that have got wood burners in them, like converted lorries and stuff like that. They were all down there. And at one point there were two back to back with the back doors open. There they'd put a pallet up across to make almost like a partition between them, and so they'd got their friends sort of with them.
Right.
And then they'd got their log burner out, and then they've got the fire going, and then I'm laying in bed, you know, further down the road, and I can hear doof, 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 music going, and I'm like, you're spoiling it. No wonder the neighbours are annoyed. You know, it's like, rock up, be peaceful and quiet, enjoy the view, go for a walk, and then don't spoil it for us.
Well, and the other thing is that I find that when you have every person on the planet has a YouTube channel, so everyone's running around going, hey, look where I am for the night. Isn't it awesome? And then the next thing you know, like, oh, that is awesome. Let's all go there.
Yeah, I'm guilty of doing that. I do say where I go.
Yeah, everyone does it, you know? It's like, oh, look how amazing it is. And then everyone sees it and they go, it is amazing. Let's go. And then the next thing you know, that quiet little spot that, you know, 4 or 5 people knew about, now there's 4 or 5,000 people that know, and they're all fighting for a spot. And,
a few people I know have done that, and then it's, you know, their quiet little place that they happen to mention to a couple of people. Those people have then gone and had a huge meetup up there, and, you know, big party or something. And before you know it, you know, the police have rocked up, and and you get those that are like, it's my right to be here. You can't take my freedom away. And you just think you're just looking for a fight, actually.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary, but there are those people with that mentality. And those are the ones that do spoil it, because while they're trying to be their warrior and they're kind of, it's our right, and they want to antagonize somebody so that somebody will challenge them, and so they can then have that moment. And it's like, if you just, it's stealth, you know, be stealthy and
pull up in your whatever, your RV, your van, your what, and you know, just open your door, sit there and enjoy the view, enjoy life, go to sleep, wake up, and leave.
Off you go. Yep.
Because here and in Canada, actually, there's a lot of people that are really getting annoyed because they paid $2, $3, $4 million for their home, for their oceanfront view, and now they wake up to open the curtains and I can't see anything because there's vans and there's bags of trash and there's, you know, and they're just lined up, and they're like, hey, sorry for you that you paid $3 million for this view. I paid $5,000 for my van and I'm living right out front of your house. Sucks to be you. And people are really getting annoyed. And so there's less and less places to park. But as I guess said,
that's probably why we've now got more barriers and more private road signs and more double yellow lines and stuff, so we can't park with that view because maybe the residents have got fed up of it.
Yeah, I know they're doing it. Like I said, it's in Canada and here as well, a lot of places. But and it's a shame because, again, it's not everyone. There are those that come in, do their thing, you know, they're not partying and playing music, and they're just there having a good time. They sleep, they get up, spend a little bit of time, watch the sunrise, drink their coffee, enjoy the morning, and then on to the next place, you know, like they were never there.
Yeah. That's how I like to be. I like to go, I fully explore the spot I'm staying at, you know, whatever is around. I want to just see that, and then I'm off.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can find places. So I have stayed like on the top of hills. Quite often they are common, so like common land. And there's not many, but there's a few around where it's like you drive into a village, and it's called something on the common, or, you know, but it's got the word common in it. And you've had to go over cattle grids, and then you've got sheep and cows and what have you roaming the streets.
Right.
And then you've got this big, like grassland. And you can usually park up at places like that. There's no restrictions on it. You can park there overnight. People go and use it for picnics and everything else. And they're usually quite busy during the day, and then they're not so busy in the evening. And you usually get woken up to a cow rubbing itself up against your van or what have you. That's, you know, I've done that a few times.
That's nice, though.
but they're nice. If you can find those, they're nice. Scotland is, and I haven't yet got to Scotland, but Scotland is far better. They have the NC 500, which is the North Coast 500. So basically it goes around the whole of the Scottish coastline.
Nice.
And that is a big one for motorhomes, travellers, that kind of stuff. But they're quite well kitted out because they've got a lot of lay-bys, they've got a lot of park-up places, they have facilities in some of the villages where you can empty your toilet and you can get your water and all that kind of stuff. So they're geared up for travelling. So we have something called Britstops, which is, I can't remember how much you pay for the year, and you get this book that comes through the post and a little sticker. And it's basically pubs and places, restaurants and stuff around the UK that you can go. They do not charge you. You can just call them up, ask them if they've got a spot. It's usually either in their car park or if they've got a big like garden at the back or something. And you can just go and park there for the night. And all they ask is that you go in and have a meal. And
yeah,
you know,
we have that. We have that here. What is it called? I can't remember what it's called right at the moment, but yeah, it's a farmer that has a field and or a winery and stuff like you can just go park and you go in.
We're not a campsite, but if you want to come park up for the night, we just ask that you come in and have a meal.
Yep.
And
that's what they do here.
Actually, there's some really nice places. Our village pub does it, and you just think there's some really nice places. And you haven't got the hassle of all the campsite and and the cost of campsite, and you need to eat anyway, so you may as well
enjoy
a meal.
Spend the money on a meal that like you said you're going to eat anyway, and you get a free place to sleep for the night. It's not bad.
And some of the problems, like one of the things that people say is against us using our vans and traveling is what are we bringing to the community? So we're not using their B&Bs and we're not using their hotels, and so the money's not going into the economy. But what a lot of us say is, if you've got those big car parks and you made it so that we could stay there overnight without the no sleep, what have you rule, and even provided toilets where we can go and empty our toilet overnight or whatever, you'd actually be bringing a group of people to you that are then going to go, because they're not spending the money on the accommodation. We do things like we get a local meal, we buy the fish and chips. Those that drink go into the pubs, we go into the coffee shops. So we are supporting the local economy. We see the sites, we're supporting it in a different way.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's spending our money then. That's
true. And well, I mean, if you're living or whatever, traveling in a van or whatever, you don't have a giant refrigerator and a freezer, and you don't have a giant closet and everything. So I know that the nomads I watch on YouTube, they're forever going to the store. I need this, and they go and they get enough. They don't have a giant closet to pack full, so that they're constantly going to the store. So they're always spending money wherever they're at, even if it's just filling up their gas tank because they drove all day. So they definitely contribute to the local economies wherever they're at. That's one thing for sure.
And if I'm not spending £60 on accommodation, then I'm happy to spend that £60 within the community, having a meal, having a drink, going for a coffee, that kind of thing.
Right.
In the town centre, in the community, rather than, and then you go and then you end up going, oh, that's a nice little shop, and you pop in there and you get your Christmas presents or your little bits and bobs. And
and a lot of folk, Nomadic Fanatic just popped to mind. Wherever he goes, he has to buy some little trinket saying he was there, whether it be a magnet or shirt, a hat, or what, So, they always hit up something to say, hey, look where I was, put the little sticker on their map that I was here. And so yeah, I mean, they definitely do contribute wherever they're at.
And I've even said, so the one thing I've thought about is when I'm driving home with my little porta potty, it always comes down to toileting, doesn't it? With this van life, that's van life. So when I'm driving home with my 2 days full toilet, I'm thinking I don't really want to have to take it in the house and go and empty it in the toilet. I would like to pull up somewhere and have somewhere to dispose of it. And we have services, but the toilets are usually inside unless so we have the motorway, which I guess is like your freeway.
Mm-hmm.
And then off the motorway at certain points you have like what we call a service station, which is usually very expensive fuel. Toilets, somewhere to get something to eat, that kind of just a rest spot.
Right.
And they're usually quite big. But sometimes it's just like a little garage, just like a very small one. And sometimes they've got an outside toilet, so you could get away with it. But most of them are these big, owned by big companies with little outlets in them. And you can't really walk in there with your toilet. And I'm just thinking it would be great if services catered for the vans and just have, it all goes to the same place, just have a dump spot and a water spot.
Yeah.
I'd pay, I would pay to use it. If they had a door that you had to put a pound coin in before you could get into the building, I would be happy, I'd happily do that. And I do think that's something that we could do better here.
We have, they call them rest areas here every so often when you're on the freeway, you'll say, rest area in 2 miles. Next one is in 76 miles. So, if you're thinking of holding it to the next one, you got 76, either go in 2 miles or 76 miles. So, and it's usually, a lot of it's split up in areas. When you go, you can say, it says trucks and RVs this way, cars this way, and it's a similar thing, a building with a bunch of,
coffee shops and
machines, and you can go buy candy and stuff, and then the little thing with all the maps and the info from wherever you're at, and then the giant bathrooms with stall after stall after stall and urinals on the wall, and and
if you're lucky, they've got showers as well. Some of them.
Oh yeah, well we have lots of truck stops also for the big trucks where they go in, and those guys, they'll go in and sleep because they drove so much, and they go in and they shop kind of like the RVers. They go in, they'll take a shower and do their business, get a meal, and go buy cigarettes and some snacks and stuff like that. But you guys have huge trucks like RVs and stuff. It's on a different level. There's my little Spog, and then there's you guys have these things that are towed behind huge, great big trucks, and they have sides that pop out, and you're just like, we actually have one that was for sale in one of the towns further, one of the villages further over. There's one in a garage, and this garage is done up in a very kind of American style, and it had an old American truck that they'd done up, and that was out the front, looked gorgeous. But they had one of these huge RV things that they were selling. I was like, I don't know if you've seen some of the tracks that I drive down. I just fit in Spog, and that's that's without one of those huge, great big things. Yeah. So do you watch a lot or some of the RVer channels here on the YouTubes?
On the YouTubes? I do. I have on and off watched various channels. It's not as easy for me to relate to, though, because it's a very different setup.
Yeah.
So I tend to watch more of the UK van life ones, just because I can see where they go and I can go there.
Yeah.
And I can see where they park and I can park there. But yeah, I like, what's his name?
Good old, what's his name?
Van City Van Life.
Van City Van Life Chrome in his van. Yeah.
Chrome, that's it. Yeah, Chrome. I like, but again, he's in a van. He's like, I can relate to that a bit more.
Yeah. I've been following him. I probably started watching him maybe about a month after he started his channel, and I've been watching him this whole time. And
I like his outlook as well. He's not moaning. He's like, he's so happy. And he's so, again, he sees things and he sees things.
Yeah.
That
annoys some people that they say he's too positive. You have to have a bad day. You use too pot, it really does annoy some people.
Yeah. But I'm not, I mean, I don't feel myself as ecstatically exciting as him, but that's how it's like, it's beautiful. It's lovely. I just, I'm really happy to be where I am, seeing what I'm seeing. And
yeah.
So I can relate to that.
Well, it seems that there is a lot of similarities and a lot of differences, but it still seems pretty similar from what it's like over in the UK to here, except, well, the Americans, we do everything to excess. So we have to have, we have to have a double-decker bus that we live in over here for real.
Yeah, no, we do everything on a smaller scale, but then you think how small our island is. If we all did it huge, we'd be gridlocked.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get to park anywhere.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I thank you for hanging out and sharing your little experience with everyone here on YouTube. And again,
well, thank you for having me.
I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure all my blind viewers already know who Worm's Eye View is. But if you don't, go over, click on that subscribe button and give her some views. Check her out. She's awesome. And I should know because I'm Blind Views, and that's the way I see it.
What we do here is go back.